Still funneling in. We'll go.
Guys, welcome to your Tuesday masterclass. I hope that all of you guys have a little bit of a hitch in your giddy up today because we have got the Don in real estate with us. I call him real estate. He's basically like Batman in real estate, right? You won't see a bunch of videos of Greg Harrelson driving Lamborghinis down the Vegas Strip. He's not that kind of guy. But if you are a producer in real estate, you know who Greg Harrelson is, right? Maybe not you as an individual agent, right? Because Greg's not the type that spends billions on marketing trying to sell you shit that you don't need. Greg Harrelson is literally like one of the most productive agents of all time. He's got one of the most productive offices of all time. And if you don't know him, it's because he's out there just being Batman in our industry. I made a video the other day saying in South Carolina, there's no such thing as a FSBO. It's only FSBG, for sale by Greg Harrelson or his cronies. He's an absolute savage in our industry, guys. And you're going to learn something today. Now, the one thing that you won't get from Greg is a lot of fluff. The one thing that you won't get from Greg is a lot of, hey, do this that doesn't really work, right? So everything that you guys are going to learn from Greg is something that you need to implement. You know, he was just talking about one of his agents that he's got on this call who took 18 listings just last month, right? And for those of you guys who didn't hear that correctly, 18 listings in the past month, right? And that's what some people do in an entire year, right? And so there's a lot of people who are full of shit in this industry, guys, I guess is what I'm saying, right? The proof is in the pudding, the proof is in the numbers. And if there's ever somebody in our industry who has the numbers to back up what they're teaching, it's this man that we've got on the call today. So we're all very lucky to have Greg Harrelson. Guys, can we just give it up for Greg Harrelson before he says a word this morning and thank him for jumping on this?
Thank you for coming on.
Let's go, Greg.
Woo!
Go ahead.
Greg, I'll probably botch some of these stats too, but just to highlight some of you guys, those of you that were in Washington had the good fortune of seeing Greg live and in person probably exactly a year ago. I think it was last June. He came into Washington with us and which was really, really cool. So one, Greg, thank you. Like, this is an honor for me to be able to bring people like this and you guys to speak to our group and all of our agents and drop the value that he does. So Greg, these stats that I know in my mind, you might have to correct them, but I think they're kind of close. I've known Greg for quite a few years now, building the businesses he does, not only as one of the largest solo producers in our industry ever, right? And big prospecting background, controlled background, database background, marketing background, lead gen background. We're going to talk about all of that. Currently 9 offices, right, Greg?
Mm-hmm.
9 offices. And here's the crazy thing that I just know, starting with, your Myrtle Beach office, which is your, main office that Joseph works, right next to you in there, being the #1 office in Myrtle Beach since inception. And now you've just been kind of absorbing other office spaces around. I mean, I don't think it's even a close second in your guys' marketplace. So he's dominated his entire marketplace since inception of being in business. And just even with the numbers that we shared with you guys of Joseph from his office, I know a bunch of Greg's agents who have been built from scratch, like new licensees that when I met them were selling 150, 200, 250, 300 plus homes by themselves, right? As a listing agent with a couple of assistants. So I've been around these guys that I've had the fortune to get exposed to. I think it's 9 offices. I don't know if you have 300 plus agents right now. I know you guys last year were selling 4,000 plus transactions a year total as a group, but these guys are doing a lot of deals. And so Greg, I don't know if I botched that at all. But there's a lot of gold that Greg will share. He put together a Facebook group, and I'm going to drop the link in here because I follow that group. I know Nick and a handful of others do as well. Like Cooley said, Greg is not someone that's like flashy online everywhere. He just drives results and he builds results with agents. It's what he has a passion for. And so I have followed Greg just as a mentor and everything he's been sharing out there for years. So I'm going to drop that link for all of you guys in the chat. So you guys can follow and request to join to be a member because he puts so much value in there. So with that said, thank you, Greg.
It was really funny because when we were putting together the flyer, Michelle wrote top 1% agent, Greg Harrelson on the flyer. And me and Chris Hardy started laughing because we're like, well, what does that mean, right? Top 1% is you sold 45 homes in a year, right? That's not exactly a good description of Greg Harrelson. That might be an insult. Listen, guys, we've been talking to you guys about making a lot of money over the past couple of months, right? I think the theme for this group has been 100K spring, right? 100K months in spring, 100K summer. I think what gets lost in that is Yeah, obviously we're in the pursuit of making money, but it can't all be about making money, right? We've got to make sure that while we're making money, right, that we're doing the other things right to really capitalize on spring and summer because we've got a unique opportunity now. And I think that's what Greg Harrelson is going to be talking to us about today is how to stop just chasing money all the time, right? And turn that money that we're making into an actual business that's going to help you do what he's done, which is completely take over a marketplace, right? And isn't that what we all want? Correct me if I'm wrong, but just unmute your microphones for me and tell me if you just want to make some money or if you're more interested in taking over a marketplace. Like, what are we trying to do
Take
here?
over a market.
Over
Let's go.
market.
Taking
Take
over.
over. Take
Take
over.
over.
Take over.
I love it. Greg, what's the difference between an agent who's making money and an agent who's taking over a marketplace?
Well, great question. And man, you guys are great at the hype, man. I mean, Cooley, you are a hype man. I don't know if you've are a DJ or done a DJ in the past, but damn, you should. I'd join your show for sure. But I do appreciate all the kind things that you said, and I think we can sum up my success very easily. Look, I'm a worker bee. I work. Okay. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just very consistent and I work really hard. And over time, things just build if you have those those characteristics. But to answer your question, I just wrote down in my notes because I have a little journal here, and sometimes you guys will stimulate things, so I'll make a little note to if I want to talk about it. And I said, the difference, Cooley, is people, in the industry, we're teaching people so often, how to make money, right? And there's all kinds of benefits to making money. I mean, I'm not saying that's negative, but what we don't teach is we don't teach about building wealth. And so we should be thinking about it like when we're out there chasing transactions, which I do, okay, and I would coach you to do, but we can't lose sight that chasing the dollar, chasing the transaction, and building wealth are not one of the same. It's not one of the same. And so it's the difference in like, okay, are we looking to build our reach our goals this month? Or are we looking long term to build and take over market share? Like you said, how much you want to dominate a market? Most people, if you look at their business plan is all associated with how to make money this month. And there's nothing in the business plan that has to do with building wealth. And when I say building wealth, I'm really talking about market share. But if you gain market share, you gain wealth, whatever wealth means, okay? But the key is, in order to gain market share, you got to gain mind share. And that's what's important. And what are you doing every day to gain mind share? And a lot of times working on the business is equally important as to working in the business. So I think that's what's the difference, Cooley, is the people that are building long-term and doing extraordinary things and sustaining that extraordinarily high level, they're working on the business and in the business at the same time.
1,000%. And I think like right now, a lot of people are experiencing an influx of business. We came off a really rough market for a lot of people in 2024. Some agents made their the best year ever in 2024, but I think industry average for most, it was a tough year for a lot of people. I think we've seen this year the market pick up, at least in the Washington market, quite dramatically, right? And so a lot of agents are in the mindset right now that they're out there chasing the dollar, they're out there chasing the money, and they start abandoning their principles, their business plan, and everything else because business has never been better. You know what I mean? And so in a market like this, Greg, where I guess the market's not on fire for a lot of people, the market's definitely good, especially in Washington. Like, what are the steps that they need to take right now in order to lay that foundation, get a little bit more discipline, and look at this market as the opportunity that we were talking about before everybody jumped on the call, which is there's an opportunity right now to actually start taking up market share instead of chasing transactions. Where do we go? What are the steps in being able to do that?
Yeah. And for answer, so I said this earlier before we got on with the whole group, is that, somebody asked me not long ago, what kind of market is this? Is this a buyer's market or is it a seller's market? And my answer was neither. It's a top agents market. This is a top agents market. And what I mean by that is the market right now is posing an opportunity for those that are really serious to gain market share. And the market share that you gain right now in this type of economy, in this type of market, it's hard to lose. But the market share that you lose in a good market because of bad habits, right? A good market creates a soft agent. So a hot market creates a soft agent. And so what a lot of agents do is they lose market share without even knowing it in a hot market. And then because they stop doing the things that they need to do. And then in a down market, those bad habits, they show themselves, and then all of a sudden we're struggling. Now, hopefully not this group. You're not in that case. You guys are growing. But right now, you just got to understand you need to be thinking about gaining market share. So let's talk about that. So for instance, I've got a database of 100 and let's call it 130,000 documented property owners. Okay. Now, I said it's 130,000 documented property owners. Everyone in the database is a guaranteed document owner. Okay. And that's called market share. See, that database is getting 60 touches a year. That's mind share. Mind share, 60 touches a year in a nurture system. So I'm getting the mind share. Now, the result of that, if you guys have ever heard of a program called Fellow, Fellow's out there, and it's just a program, I call it a lead identification system, but I've got my database in that CRM as well as many others. But in that one CRM alone, talk about old leads. So I've taken 154 listings in the last 12 months from people in that database that have been in that database over 18 months. See, that's market share. That's not chasing the business. That was building a business, building that database, nurturing that database while I'm still chasing business, calling the expireds, calling the FSBOs, doing the circle prospecting, working SOI, looking for referrals, and all these different things that, all of y'all are hopefully doing, or some of you are doing some of it, and some of you doing others. That's chasing the business. You got to do it. But you and I both know when you're chasing the business, you're going to get more no's than you're going to get yeses. The difference is y'all are focusing on, or I shouldn't say y'all because I don't know all y'all. Y'all, I'm from
Just say
South
y'all.
Carolina.
Just tell everybody. Just
Yeah.
blame everybody, Greg. That's okay.
Blame them all. Make them all wrong, right? So the key is what y'all are doing is y'all are probably practicing and getting better at monetizing the yeses. But anybody can monetize a yes. I want to know what you got in play to monetize the no's. So is it more important for me to get a yes today or for me to get 40 no's today? Because 40 no's is going to add 20 people to my database. And 20 people to my database that's going to be nurtured on over 60 times in a year I'm going to gain mind share. And if I gain mind share for multiple years in a row using technology and drips and all these other things, I'm going to eventually end up with market share. Where 154 listings for people that have been in the database for 18 months or longer means that's basically come list me business. So I've got two channels going on. I'm chasing and being chased at the same time. And that's the position you need to put yourself in. And you need to put yourself in that position right now because it's a top agents market. A top agents market is a market where somebody who's not a top agent has an equal playing field, a level playing field to go ahead and make their mark in this market and become a top agent in the next 12 months. And it's a top agents market for top agents that already exist. If they go back to their roots, if they go back to the core fundamentals of what they did to become a top agent, they can take it to the next level and gain more market share. The challenge is the top agents of the past are right now at risk of not being the top agents of the future. I'm kind of pointing out Joseph over here. He's one of the agents and in my office. And I just said he took 18 listings. And yes, he is a little bit on the younger side. I think you're 21 or 22, maybe 22. And yes, you haven't been in the business that long. This is this is the market for him. So I took 18 listings and he's building a database. And now he's already, after a year and a half of doing this, he's getting people to email him and say, you know what? I've been in your database and I'm thinking about selling. Can you come help me out now? Being chased already after 18 months of just following the system. He's already being chased at a lower level, but nonetheless.
And that's kind of the dream for every real estate agent, right? To start getting those emails and to start getting those inbound calls. Like, how many of you guys would reject that? And how many of you guys want to actually be in that position where you're like, yeah, please send me a message. Tell me that you want me rather than me pursuing you every single day, trying to get you to fall in love with me, right? And so 100%, all of us guys, I think, at least people within our group are really trained and bred to go out there and chase the business every single day. I think the agents who are really good, Greg, at going out there and getting the business are typically terrible about the market share part. Why? Because they've always got that one track mind of going out there and getting the business, and they're always prioritizing the yes, right? Rather than, I think what you're saying is what's more important is getting those 40 no's and what you're doing with them each and every single day, right?
That's it, Cooley.
And so
You're so spot on because, you know, I think what I've been accused of in our industry for many years, okay, like the perception of the Greg Harrelson is, man, he just shows up every day. He's a prospect. He's a grinder. Listen, the whole time everybody's been like accusing me of prospecting every day and grinding, which I accept that 100%. Believe me, I wear that with a badge of honor.
yeah.
But you realize when it's described about me, when it's not to my face, it's like, yeah, this is all he does. And the whole time, I've never really got a lot of credit. I get credit for he's consistent, right? But I don't get really credit for this. The entire time while y'all thought I was actually just trying to do personal production on a daily and a yearly basis, I was building fucking wealth. That's the mistake that people made. People actually thought I was chasing income. I was building an empire. And there's no empire builder that doesn't build it with a grind, period. And so, but the grinders don't get the credit. And the reason, and believe me, I don't want the credit. That's not the point. But the point is the reason we don't get the credit is because there's very few people willing to do it. And they would
1000%.
rather make it wrong than accept they're not doing the right.
Greg, in your experience, so take, outside of you coaching, your office, all the agents you get to talk to out there, right? Do you think that this is one of the, and good producers, agents selling 100 homes, 70 homes a year, 50 homes a year, right? All over the country. Would you say this is one of the biggest missing pieces in an agent's business?
100%.
Yeah.
And it's not the how, Michelle. It's not the tactics we're talking about. It's the how that we framed what we think we have to do.
Yeah.
It's the framing of it. Like, while everyone's thinking this is a grind and I don't know about this and that's hard work. And I'm like, this is the easy path to wealth building. This is the easy path to building market share. This is what gets me this big database.
And so really one of the reasons why you're one of the most productive agents in the United States is not because you're out there getting more yeses than everybody, but also because you're going out there and getting a lot more no's than everybody. And it's what you're doing with those no's that are actually paying dividends. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's the art is figuring out how to monetize the no.
Got it.
If you can, before we dig into that, I just want to share a couple of examples. Just I've had, the opportunity to pick your brain for years, as well as a bunch of your agents. I think this might have been like 2 years ago, maybe, that Brendan was on here with us, right? Selling 80 homes a year. And we were talking about the difference. And then also with yourself, right? Going from when you were probably at the height selling 500 plus, right, homes with you and your assistants and your small team. The difference of like that grind of the 50 plus contacts a day to this is how many deals I do a year now. And I can't remember what Brendan said. I want to say it went from like 50 outbound contacts, right, to go get the cold business, to it was like 8 or 12 a day to cold business. Now fast forward how many years, but he was still closing the 150, the 180 transactions a year. And I know, Greg, in conversations we've had with the production that you've built over the years, and then building that wealth, right? Building wealth, the market share, building mind share. I wrote that down because they're all three the same thing, right? How many transactions a year you still do personally? I know you just shared the example of Fellow that you're still doing a year personally because of this database, right? That you've built over all these years. And how many you're doing a year, like every year personally, that come from that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done like under 100 deals, you know, probably in 20 years. But like personally right now, the way that I work is the database is a machine, right? And unfortunately or fortunately for my executive assistant, she's on vacation all week. And when she's on vacation all week, that means I've got so many people calling to list properties and so many referrals coming in that I just won't even take one this week because I don't even want to look at my email. So then I have two other people that work right alongside me that they're going to take all the leads this week that are coming from the database and my referral channels and whatnot. And we'll do probably 150 transactions this year. All pretty much, I mean, there'll be some expires from that, but most of that is inbound and database worked.
All come list me.
Majority of them would be come list me. There'll be some.
So many people are so jealous of that right now. They're like, oh yeah, good for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because that's
but you
like
know
the most
what, Cooley,
valuable
like
thing that you
if
could
you think
possibly
about
get.
it, you know, Cooley, you know, I remember you guys, you know, Kevin Mills and whatnot. I had Kevin, Brendan, and Abe. These are guys that were new licensees in my office that are doing hundreds of transactions. And I had them on stage right now because I was going to interview them I had them on a panel and I did an interview with them. And I looked out to the stage and I said to the audience, and I said, okay, Kevin does, let's say he at that time is 250 transaction with like one assistant and maybe two VAs, not even a buyer's agent at that time. And then, you know, and then I said what Abe and Brendan did was all in the 160 range. And I asked the audience, how many of you think that's extraordinary? And all I did was give them the numbers. I said, raise your hand if you think it's extraordinary. And everyone raised their hand. And I said, did you notice there's one person that didn't raise their hand? And it's me. I didn't think that was extraordinary. I said, here's what I think's extraordinary, though. It's what you don't know. What you don't know is they're all in the gym at 5 a.m. I think that's extraordinary. I think it's pretty extraordinary that they're in the office at 7:30 a.m. 5 days a week. I think that's extraordinary. I think it's extraordinary that they prospect from 8 to 11. I think that's pretty damn extraordinary. I don't think their results are extraordinary. I think their results are ordinary. What the hell do you think would happen to your business if you did those things? So like when you look at it, it's like no one should be jealous of what I'm doing. Everyone should just make a damn decision if they're willing to do what I did. That's it. There's nothing that I've done from a result standpoint that anyone should be impressed about. If I would ever say be impressed with something about me, it'd be about my damn consistency. About me not getting distracted by the shiny objects. By me sticking to the core fundamentals of building a business. And we all know what they are. We are not lacking the how in our industry. We are lacking the will, the willingness to show up.
I just want to stay silent for like 5 minutes and let that sink in for everybody on the call because I love that so much, right? And you guys hear a lot of the things that we echo because, you know, again, Greg Harrelson's a big influence on all of us, right? So all of these things, I mean, if you're a co-founder, raise your hand if you understand that for us, like the praise is in, can you show up every single morning at 7:30? Can you get on the phones at 8 a.m.? And that's what we find extraordinary is the consistency of doing that because that's a recipe to win, right? And so, Greg, for a lot of people on this call, because there's people outside of the co-founders group on this call, inside of the co-founders group, if you could just do me a favor, and I know you've been asked this 100 times, and I know that you're probably not going to knock the socks off of everybody on this call with that, but if you had to Betty Crocker me for like just the next 3.5 minutes, right? And you had to give every single person on this call the Betty Crocker recipe, right? To start actually building that kind of business where they're taking market share, obviously chasing the money every day too, but building the market share on top of that, what would you recommend that they do? Like, what's the do this, do this, do this Betty Crocker style, what's the recipe for these guys to get started on that and build the foundation for it? Now, obviously it's across time, right? But the Betty Crocker of it right now, what does that look like?
You know, first thing that I would say is you got to choose one pillar to master. I'm just going to give you the one that I did was expires. Choose one pillar to master and have 2 to 3 other pillars that enhance that business. So master one pillar where you go extremely deep, and then 2 to 3 other pillars that are also lead channels of where you're going to do that you can control, meaning outbound lead channels. So for me, it was expireds, then it was FSBOs, then it was circle prospecting in the beginning. Okay, so number one, you got to do that. You got to decide who are you going, what's your niche going to be. Then you got to go ahead and you got to do what you've heard me say millions of times. You got to generate for 3 hours a day. That's it, period, non-negotiable. You show up from 8, you do 3 hours of lead generation, you focus on your niche, you double down on it, you drain it for everything that's got, and then you hit the other 2 enhancements, the other lead pillars, and you do that for 3 hours every day, 5 days a week without fail. Every time you get a no, you then say to them, hey, gosh, you know, Donna, I really appreciate you taking the time to have the conversation with me. You know, you probably are not aware, but there's a lot of neighbors in your neighborhood. A lot of your neighbors have requested that I keep them up to date as to what's going on in the neighborhood when it comes to sales. What's your best email? I'll make sure you get the same information. They give me their email address, and then I will get a high percentage of the no's will give me their email address and accept the fact that I'm going to start putting them in my database and drip on them. Okay, so I'm going for the yeses. I'm getting a lot of no's every single day for 3 hours, and the no's are allowing me to build my database. And I'm doing this over and over again. Now, when you put this in a database, I put it, I use Follow Up Boss as my main database. I use Fellow, though, to really monetize the no's. Fellow's kind of like a home bot. It sends them information, what's your property worth, here's your property value, and things like that. But it's got some intelligence behind it. So I can actually go into my database right now, and I can just click a few buttons. I'm getting ready to do a webinar on it tomorrow, but I can click a few buttons, and I can say, I want to see everybody that had their property on the market in the last 6 months, but it's no longer in the market. And they just started engaging with my emails more frequently. Now think about that. They were on the market 6 months ago and I'm no longer on the market. They've been in my database getting stuff, but in the last 2 weeks, they started engaging more frequently in my emails. Like they're opening up my email again and again. They're checking their value. What do you think's getting ready to happen? Yeah. They're probably thinking about going back on the market. So instead of me waiting for them to call me, I just let that intelligent database, I call it a lead identification system. It just identified who's the top person I need to call today because something's going on with this guy. And I call him and boom, there's an appointment. So you see how this is working. I'm going in every single day and I'm gold mining. When I don't get the quality nuggets that I want, I take the byproducts and I put them over here. And then I got a system working on those that's actually now bubbling them up to the top so I know who to call tomorrow. That's just it. But just think, if you take one thing away, if you take me showing up from 8 to 11 away, the one thing, the whole recipe is done. That's like, we're baking a cake and I just said, okay, follow the recipe, but don't put an egg and flour in it. You're screwed.
Yeah. You got no cake without flour.
It's the staple. Yes, baking a cake without a flour. So that's a staple. It's not going to happen. And we are working so hard as an industry to perfect a cake without the egg and flour.
Yeah, 100%. When you say like you're mastering one, right? You're mastering one type, okay?
Yes.
Break that down for your average agent as to what mastery actually means, right? Because mastery to you doesn't mean just fucking call it every day, right? Like you mean something when you say master. And everybody, I want you guys to pay attention to this because again, like Greg said, this is like, you know, taking ingredients out of the cake when we're talking about specifically mastery, right? You could do shit on accident or you could do it with intent and purposefully. You know what I mean? It's the difference between getting results, right? Or accidentally having success here and there, right? So Greg, when you say mastery, what do you mean by that?
That amazing observation on that one, Cole. I'm glad you picked that one up because that is very, very important to pick that up. So mastery is like not just learning a script. Okay, there's plenty of expired scripts. Go learn the script, right? But that would be a basic level, right? But like mastery is when you can handle their objections 10 times without repeating yourself. Like, there's the black belts, right? But there's a first degree black belt, there's a second degree black belt, there's different degrees of black belts. And I'm talking about like getting your seventh degree, like seventh level degree of mastery, where when somebody says, because a lot of people freak out, like an expired is going to say, oh my gosh, you're the fifth agent that's called me. I mean, cool, five? Well, gosh. Okay, well, at least 5 people are working out of the 5,000 that are licensed today. I mean, is that what you're going to say? Or like if it expires to say, oh my God, you're just calling for a listing. Calling for a listing? Are you kidding me? I'm not calling for a listing. I'm calling for a sale. As a matter of fact, I'm really calling for a commission check. It's the MLS that requires me to actually officially go to your house and take the damn listing so I can put it in the MLS. I can't get it on the market without taking a listing. But if I could come over to your house and go straight to cash in a commission check, I promise you I wouldn't ask you for the listing. I'm actually calling you to sell the property. Oh my God. Well, why didn't you show it when it was on the market? Because I didn't know it was on the market. Were you aware of that there's a lot of agents that didn't know it was on the market? What do you mean? Aren't you in the MLS? Of course I'm in the MLS, but your property being the MLS, you're just 1 out of 10,000. You don't think a busy agent like myself is going to memorize all 10,000 listings, right? The only listings I pay attention to are my listings, the listings in my office, or the listings that were marketed aggressively by my competing agents that decided that they would promote it to me. And I just don't recall ever saying any promotions. In my opinion, the property just needs to be marketed more aggressively. We can go for hours and I can just never stop on an expired conversation. Now, you all are afraid that they might actually give you one of those objections. I wish I could tell them to give me every one of them, because when I'm done with them, they're cooked. That's mastery.
Okay, I have
How
to
many of you,
admit,
how many,
not
how
with
many of you guys,
the
Michelle, can I say something real quick? Like, how many of you guys wish that you could talk to sellers like that?
Cooley,
Honestly.
you
And
can.
was
You are a
just
master at scripts.
I
Cooley is a
need
master.
it.
I was
thank
just
you.
gonna say, that was very impressive, and I know you don't want to hear
That was
that.
crazy.
The direct way in which she speaks, like, I want you guys to all understand where that comes from, right? Because Greg could say something really daring and still get a negative reaction, right? But why does Greg feel like he can actually say that to people? It's because he knows he's got all the confidence in the world, because he's got the strength to rebound, right? And rebound and rebound and rebound. You know what I mean? So for some of you guys who are thinking, man, I could never be direct with a seller like that. Are you calling because you want a listing? Fuck yeah, I'm calling because I want a listing, right? I'm calling because I want to sell it. I don't want a listing. I want to sell your home, right? Some of you guys would never say that because you don't have the confidence to deal with the reaction, right? Greg can say the same objection over and over again 10 times and get where he wants. So it allows you to talk a certain way, act a certain way. And we all know that confidence comes from competency. And so if you want to be direct and you want to be forward with people, you've really got to invest yourself into the mastery of the conversation. Now, the good news is for everybody on this call, there's like 10 or 15 objections. That's it. It's not complicated. It's are you working in it every single day so that you can overcome the same objection 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times? And if you could do that, then you start walking around in any living room or on the phone and start saying the things that you just really want to say, but you never had the courage to say. You know what I mean? And so I love that, Greg. What does that look like for you in terms of, like, if your agent wants to achieve mastery, if they want to learn how to overcome the same objection 10 different times, calendar wise, what does that look like for a top agent in a top agent market? What are they doing to increase that skill set each and every single day or every week?
They're practicing just like that. Right? Like we fall into this, the role playing is nothing more than we just read the scripts to each other. No. So what I did early on, and I tell some agents to do in the office, is we play the game Stump the Chump. Like and that's coolly. I think you and I should do that one day, right? Play Stump the Chump, where me and you team up and let's just let the whole universe try to stump us, because I don't think there's a chance they can stump me and you. There's no way they're going to stump us.
No way.
Right.
No way.
So I end up doing that with the agents. I say, Jay, the agents need to play Stump the Chump, which is because you picked up on something. You picked on how quickly I can rebound. Right. And that is a skill that's learned. And so you got to play like Stump the Chump, or kind of like a hot potato version, where it's like I would role play and somebody would say, okay, well, you're the 10th agent to call me. And then I would say what I was going to say. And then as soon as I stopped saying what I would say, I would have to pass the potato to some random agent in the office who was in this little circle. And then I would throw an objection, and then they would have to immediately respond. And if they hesitated, they lost. If there was any hesitation. So we ended up playing like hot potato. So I handle an objection, boom, throw an objection at you. If you stutter, you're the chump. And so that's how we practiced. We practice. It's kind of like, listen, if anyone like had a good time in college, if you ever went to college and had a good time and partied a lot, you probably did this with your boys all the time. You guys were always one up each other. And I really actually believe it's kind of a variation of that, except we're not trying to one up them, but in a way we are. Like just remember, there's a sale made on every call. They either sell us as to why we don't get an appointment, or we sell them as to why we do get an appointment. I'd be damned if I'm going to be outsold by that 50-year-old retired teacher who's never been trained as a salesperson. I'm not going to be outsold. It cannot happen.
And you already know what his objections, right? Advantage you. You know what I mean? You already know what he's going to say. There's a very limited scope of what people can say. And so if you can master that, it's like, it's easy. You know what I mean?
We already know their plays. We've already seen their film. We know exactly what play they're going to run in every situation. So shame on you if you don't have the right play to run back.
Amen. Michelle, you had something you wanted to say. I interrupted you because I just fanboyed out on that statement on him role playing. I love that, guys. And I'm telling you what, 99% of this business is how you communicate, right? And so the one thing that you see in common amongst the absolute savages in our industry is that they're not afraid to have a conversation. They're not afraid to put themselves out there, and they command your attention. Why? It's because they're confident. Why are they confident? Because they're competent, and they spend a lot of time in the competency areas, right? So take a look at your calendar right now. And if you're the type of person that wants to achieve Greg Harrelson type success, or even the youngster in his office who took 18 listings last month, take a look at your schedule and ask yourself, are you doing the things that they're doing, right? And so Greg, real quick, for your new agents, or let's say this young man that you brought on here that took 18 listings, does he role play every day? Like, what does that look like for him calendar wise?
Joseph, do you role play every day?
Yes.
What time do you get to the office?
Typically 7, sometimes 6:45.
What time's your first call?
8 a.m. sharp.
What time's your last call?
If I'm not still on the phone by 11, it's typically at 11.
Yeah, typically at 11. Okay, good. So I wrote this manual that I've never shared with anybody, and I'm not going to share it with anybody. And it's called Creating Top Agents for Scratch. And basically, he hasn't even seen that manual, but he's basically following the Better Crocker recipe. That's it.
I love it.
The rest of it's just nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
I love it.
Greg, one thing I've heard you break down before that I absolutely love is between 8 and 11, because you talk about the pregame, you talk about the game, you talk about the postgame. During the game, the level of intensity your agents have at the game. You know, are people looking at the MLS, reading the address, clicking on the Zillow link before making the call, or like how effective are they at the actual dialing? Like how consistent are your agents or top producers within the day, not just showing up each day, but actually within the day?
Yeah, it's a great question there too, Nick, because in the beginning, the tendency is, right, where Cooley's talking about confidence comes from competence. So in the beginning, a lot of people don't have the confidence. So what they do is they obsess about these details in the MLS. But by the time I really get them, get them really trained up, they don't need to look at any of that stuff. It's just dial the next one, dial the next one, dial the next one, dial the next one. And they have the ability to communicate and ask questions. The challenge with people that are looking at all these details and clicking through the MLS before they make the call, what they're preparing for is they're preparing their answers. You don't need to go prepare your answers as if they're going to ask you all these questions and you need to get familiar with their property. You need to prepare your questions. You should be the one that's asking the questions. They're the ones answering. You don't need to be looking at a detail sheet before you call them. Just know whether it's a home or a condo, give them a call. You're going to ask questions. You're going to be the authority, just like the doctor. You're not the nurse. You're the doctor. The nurse goes in there and collects a lot of information. The doctor goes in there and reads it all, but the doctor just doesn't go in and get all this information before they go in. They let the nurse do that. They come in and they just go right for it. So that's what we need to do. And
You
so
talking
it's
about
just an
what color
insecurity. It's a
begonias
lack
they
of
have, it's not going to
confidence.
help you.
What's that, Cooley?
I said, you talking to them about what color their begonias are in their front yard is not going to help you get a listing appointment. You know what I mean? And so just make the phone call. Michelle?
I don't remember what I was trying to say, earlier, but I just wanted to kind of, ask the group, when Greg's giving you this Betty Crocker recipe, is this new to anyone? Like, is this blowing anyone's mind? Is this complicated to anybody?
No.
One thing I
What
love.
about, let's rewind maybe 10, 15 minutes ago when Greg said his script of what he's doing to, as importantly, collect all of the no's and collect their email addresses. How many of you guys caught that script he said?
I got it.
I caught that. That was good.
Same script, Greg, I probably got from you 10 years ago that I've been teaching. Same exact word for word I probably was saying a few days ago, right? I literally took it from you, and I've been teaching that since probably the first time I met you, with how you've been building out your databases.
Yeah.
You guys seeing how like fancy and crazy that is? So Greg, I guess let me ask you this. I already know the answer, I think, but so when you're working with your agents from day one, right? What's the importance you're putting on them building this wealth, the mind share, the market share, starting day one, when you're starting with someone from the very start, from the very scratch?
So on day one, Michelle, I don't actually introduce that as a concept, but I introduce it as an activity, right? So I don't, because the day one, somebody's not going to really like understand what the heck am I talking about, right? So what I'm going to do on day one, though, is I'm going to be building that up to them. Look, if you're going to be in my main office where I exist, where I personally stand, like Joey's literally, he's in his station right now. If you can imagine, me and him are only like 4 feet from each other. We stare at each other. There's a glass between where he is right now and where I am. We like are staring each other down, okay? If I'm going to allow anyone to be in that environment, they have got to be on the phone from 8 to 11, or they can be in one of my other offices that I don't exist in. So on day one, I'm going to show them who they must be. They must be a person that shows up at this time. They do this and they do that. I'll later introduce to them the madness, like like why did you tell me all this, right? I'll start introducing that to them later, but I just give them the activities and hold them accountable to the activities in the beginning. Yes. That's it.
Do you mean
wax on, wax off? That's me, baby.
When you say hold them to the activity, meaning they might not, is that just that routine, or that they're already asking for the email address from the nose? Are you meaning that activity? Or is
well,
that
the first activity would just be showing up and making calls. That's the start, right? And then we'll warm it up a little bit more, because on the numbers tracker that we have, Joey, let me ask you this, Joey, how many contacts does it take you to get an email? Look at Joey's eyes right now. I want you to see his eyes. Guess what he's doing? He's pulling up his numbers tracker right now, because he's gonna tell us to the second decimal point.
It takes me about 7.45. And that number is a little bit high just because I'm prioritizing high contacts right now, right? So the expires and withdrawals, and some of them they just hang up and whatnot. But yeah. 7.45 to answer your question.
So 7.45 contacts to get an email. He explained a little bit why it's not a little bit better, but you see how he knew that? And he didn't make it up. I could see his eyes. You could follow his eyes. You knew he was looking something up. I happen to know, because I ask him all the time, what's this number? What's your ratio of appointment to contact ratio? And he'll tell you within 2 decimal points, within seconds, because it's every day he fills it in, and then the calculator auto calculates all of his ratios. So that's so I get them on the phones, I have them tracking the numbers, and then we just revisit the numbers tracker, and we can find out all these different ways on how we can improve just by looking at the numbers tracker.
many contacts
Now,
a day?
all of you, before we get into all the questions and stuff like that, guys, I don't want you to shout out questions here. We could do that like here in a few minutes. Now, if you were to be asked that question, all of you agents who are aspiring to double your business, right? All of you agents who are aspiring to be that kind of agent who does 200 deals a year, 300 deals a year or whatnot. If Greg asked you that question right there on the spot, how many of you guys could look down and go, oh, let me get that information for you, right? And so you've got to ask yourself, like, if you can't answer that question, then you're not serious, right? You're not actually running a business. You're chasing the money, as Greg would say. Like, you're chasing
Yeah, he's
the
building a
paycheck.
business. We're building a
Yeah,
business.
you don't have a business. There's not a business out there, whether it's a donut shop. Greg, by the way, I heard you say that on your Instagram. I swear you stole that from me, running a donut shop. I'm going to stand on that. But even a donut shop, if you were to ask them their profit margins, they would know, right? If you were to ask them, you know, how much it costs for dough every month, they would know. Why? Because it's a business. You know what I mean? And sometimes we forget because we don't have a job that we actually have a business, right? And so, Greg, that takes me to my next question, and then we'll do like a Q&A, because I think this is the most important thing. And I've heard you talk about this before, but being coachable, right? To you, what does that mean? We had John Stein. I don't know if you know who's on here. And he said, I don't know if you know who John Thai is, but he said like one of the
I know.
best ways
Yeah.
to be coachable is to like cover your eyes and just say, yes, coach, right?
Yes.
You touched on the mentor-mentee relationship, right? And what it takes to be coachable. And I would love for you to kind of lay that down and what that actually looks like here, because you've got a lot of agents on this call who probably couldn't tell you their numbers, right? But how many of you guys have been told 1,000 times, hey, this is what it takes, right? Are you coachable or are you not coachable? Greg, what does it take to be coachable? What does that look like to you?
Blind faith. You got to have blind faith in your coach. Okay. So you better choose the right coach, right? Because not everybody's going to have your interest in mind. But blind faith, like when I think of I think of, we're picking on Joseph right here, Joey, I call him Joey, because he just happens to be here today and thankful that he is. But, here's me as a leader. I'm concerned that I might die tomorrow in a plane accident, and I have not equipped my agents a damn enough.
Yeah.
My job is to make sure that if I don't exist anymore, Joey's okay, that Joey has the tools necessary to take his business wherever he wants to go with it, and hopefully help another generation of young ages come into business and do the same. So there's my commitment. So when you get somebody that you can really trust, like you and you guys, Michelle and Cooley and the rest of your founders group, when you get a group like this that has your best interest, then you just need to have blind faith. And I like that. Just say yes. Blind faith, right? It's okay to ask why, as long as you're just asking to understand. There's a difference in asking to understand at a deeper level and questioning a coach. But you got to choose a coach, and you got to double down and have blind faith, and that's it, period. Blind faith.
And so what should that mentor-mentee relationship look like? Can you touch on that a little bit more?
I think it can look in different ways, but I think that the mentor should work with the mentee in a way. In other words, do some business planning. Like let's decide the agent needs to decide where they want to go. I use this example all the time. I think I just did a Facebook post on the real estate sales solutions. I talk about being a GPS. The agent needs to kind of tell me, the agent and the coach should know exactly where the agent is at the moment. The agent has to tell the coach where they want to go. Just like you pull up a map app on your phone, that it automatically knows exactly where you are. But then you say, I want to go to this one location. Then after you tell the GPS or your coach where you want to go, then what do? You hit get directions. When you hit get directions, what does the map app do? It shows you 3 different paths to get to the desired location. That's called building a map. That's what a coach does. So Joseph says, here's where I am. I know, Joseph, I'm here with you. Joseph says, I say, where do you want to go, Joseph? Joseph says, I want to go to 100 deals. I said, easy. Let me just plug in. Joseph wants to go 100 deals. Hit the button. We got 3 routes to go, Joseph. You want to take it this way, or this way? You want to get there fast? Or you want to take your time and get there? Do you want it to be easy and take a long time? Or do you want it to be hard and it get there like in lightning speed? I want to get there as fast as I can. Okay, then we're going to take this route. Then we hit go. You hit go, and then Joseph starts driving. And what happens? Joseph's going to take a left. The map said take a right. What's the map app going to say? U-turn, turn around, rerouting. That's the coach's job. And through a series of you made a wrong turn, turn around, get going. Okay, now you're going again. Make another wrong turn, U-turn, turn around. We finally get to the destination. That's the coach-player relationship. So GPS.
I got one more question, and I know that Greg, you don't have, I don't know how much time you have, but one more question that's actually just for me, okay? Selfishly. Okay. Greg, at what point do you tell an agent to get lost, right? When you're coaching an agent and you're giving them all of your time, all of your energy, at what point do you say, you're not fucking serious? Like, come back when you're serious, but right now, you're not serious. Like you have a lot of pain, but you're not willing to do anything about that pain. What do you do? Like, where's your limit? Where do you go?
Can I answer that, Greg?
Joseph, I saw you take yourself off of mute. I'm afraid you might tell the truth here.
When you aren't consistent Monday through Friday, showing up 8 to 11.
Just done.
It's not about, it's just like, if you're not going to be consistent, I'm not showing up if you're not.
What if he shows up at 8:15?
8:50. If Joseph shows up at 8:15, I'm concerned that he's been in a car accident. That's because that would be so odd that I would actually think, holy crap. You know, it's like the bus doesn't show up with your kid to drop him off, and it's always at 8:15, and it's like 8, or always 8, and it's 8:15. Do you, as a parent, do you start panicking? That's what I would do with Joseph. But if it was somebody else, I'd just say, hey, look, you're gonna have to. If you had to drop kids off and you couldn't be there till 8:15 because of an obligation like that, that would be acceptable. Your time would be 8:15. But if 18 is showing up because you're just slacking, you're not going to exist in my environment. And let me be very clear with you. The reason why you're not going to exist in my environment is because you might end up convincing me to start showing up late. I'm actually, so we have to
I'm sorry,
wonder,
guys. You got to give us a few more minutes.
You gotta wonder, am I, part of it is not only am I doing it for them, I'm doing it for myself. I need to protect the environment because I might start slacking.
I love that so much. So you just gave me a classier way to say go fuck yourself. You will not exist in my environment. I love that. Classier way, Greg Harrelson. I love it.
So Greg,
Michelle.
I know we got a bunch of questions. Greg, is it okay? I know it just happens to be timing with which overlaps perfectly with the conversation today, that webinar you have tomorrow. Is that okay if I bring that up for everybody real quick?
Yes.
Like, is there room to add a bunch of people to it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And it'll be a great one if somebody wants to know about databases.
Yeah. So just so you guys know, there was a couple of questions earlier on. I don't know if you guys are seeing my screen. I'll just pull it up here. What am I sharing right now? What screen am I sharing?
Yeah. Yeah. You got it up there. Yeah. I'm doing I'm talking about the CRM. So I do where my 130,000 people are hosted is a CRM called Fellow. And I'm doing a webinar for Fellow and just telling people, what did I do within the CRM to get those 154 listings? That was from an old database, not talking about new stuff. This is all old. And most of this was like triggered by Come List Me.
Yeah. So those that were asking the question very early on, well, what exactly are you doing in that old database? There's even one of our guys on here that I know use Fellow. Here's the registration link, guys, but I dropped again how to follow Real Estate Sales Solutions, which is the real estate group that Greg leads and provides all this. And this is also the registration link. So
awesome.
you guys, that pairs wonderfully with what we're talking about here today.
Of
Yeah.
all the people that you guys are following and paying for stuff, or right, like whatever content you're following, if you should follow anybody in this industry, it should be Greg Harrelson, right? So you guys should be all over his Instagram, and whatever he puts out there, that's something that gets an automatic green light from Michelle and myself, because we know that this guy only teaches you stuff that's actually going to work. You know what I mean?
Greg,
And so
or go ahead, Chloe, sorry.
go ahead, Michelle.
I just wanted, Greg, one more thing that I think would help a lot of these guys, because we've got, various levels and experience on here. What's the difference between someone that's doing 50 deals to, let's say, like that 150? What would you give as a simple answer? What's the difference?
Consistency. The person that's doing 150, they wouldn't be caught dead not showing up. I mean, they have to be dead to not show up. The 150, like, it's interesting, the 100 plus producers that I've helped develop all the way up from scratch, they are the most consistent at showing up from 8 to 11. The 50 deal and less producer is way less consistent than the 150 deal producer. The other thing is the 150 deal producer is actually working less hours than the 50 deal producer. There's a direct correlation between the top producer puts in quality time, and the producer at 50 or less is doing quantity of time. So the top producers work less than the other producers because their quality of time is so high.
The busiest agent is typically an agent who does around 9 to 10 deals a year, right? They're the ones who are always working, always doing everything, always, I'm too busy to do this, never scheduled, right? It's the 10 deal a year agents, guys, who are working, quote unquote, a lot harder than anybody else. You know what I mean? So I love that. Greg, do you have just like maybe 5 minutes for some questions, or do you need to get out of here?
I have 5. My main concern is I have probably 5 minutes on my battery.
Okay. All right.
Till Greg's battery dies, we can.
Yeah, let's do about 3 minutes of questions. If anybody has any questions, for Greg.
When you say consistency from 8 to 11, though, is it also consistency within that 8 to 11? Like, is there a certain amount of contacts that they're hitting every single day, or is it just as many as you can get within 8 to 11? Like,
yeah. So it's as many as you can get with a minimum. Okay. So there's no max, but there needs to be a minimum. So you've got to go 8 to 11, and let's just make it up, and we'll just say 20 contacts is going to be the minimum. So if it requires you to get to stay longer to get the minimum, you got to stay longer. But if you hit the minimum faster, then you got to keep going. But there should be a minimum.
what's a good minimum?
I think 20 is a good minimum.
Got it.
As a minimum, like never a day without 20.
Thank you.
Write that down, ladies and gentlemen, please. Never a day without 20, right? So some of us, we prospect, even our guys who are consistent prospecting from 8 to 11. It's like you're prospecting from 8 to 11 to put yourself in a position where you get 20 contacts, right? If you're not getting your 20 contacts inside of that, well, you're doing it for a purpose, and we need to extend ourselves, right? We'll take one more question for Greg.
Please don't let it be that.
See Jaya's hand. I see you waving.
Go ahead, Jaya.
Yes.
By the way, Greg, Jaya's a brand new agent. She's been with us for 8 days and has like 5 listings in 8 days, like a gangster.
And Jaya is extremely expressive, and I just love all of her reactions through this through the meeting today. I've been watching her. I was like, all right, if Jaya's happy, I must have said something good.
Yeah.
It was so good hearing from you, by the way. Literally gems. I got my notebook right here, written it all down. Awesome. But I had a question. So after 11 o'clock, right, what is the ideal day, especially for like a new agent? We prospect 8 to 11, then kind of where do we go after that to still be like productive and producing?
Okay, so if you were a new agent in my team or my office, 8 to 11 would be, yes, that would be a staple. But let's assume that you don't really have any business right now. You would be 8 to 11, 11 to 1, and a 1 to 4. Okay, you would just be relentless. That's all you would do until you got to the stage of like, okay, Greg, I can't go all day anymore. I've got to do some research. I got to do some follow-up. Then we would go back to, okay, let's do 8 to 11. Maybe at 11, take a little break, get a little bit of lunch or something like that. Get back out here at 12:30, start working on checking your emails and following up on anybody that called you back. Then start doing your research. Then start preparing for your listing presentations. Eventually, you got negotiations, price reduction conversations. All those things would exist in the outside of 8 to 11. 8 to 11 is everything or is only the activities that yield you new business. Period. It's not follow-up. It's not home inspections. No commingling of activities in 8 to 11. It's just lead generation. If you can do that and maintain that for your entire career, you'll do hundreds of deals. The challenge is what ends up happening. We get to like 10 deals, and then all of a sudden we claim that we're too busy. As soon as you're thinking that you're too busy, you need to reorganize, retool. It's okay. You're going to think you're too busy, and you're going to be too busy. But then what you got to do, instead of giving up on 8 to 11, you got to go in and figure out how to optimize and get better at managing this new level of business while maintaining 8 to 11. So maybe you start doing delegation. Maybe that's where a VA comes in. Maybe that's where you need to kind of employ some different resources. But you just never let go of 8 to 11. Never let go. Matter of fact, Jay, you've never heard this, but one of my friends is my financial advisor, actually. He says, Greg, if you ever bought a really big boat, like one of those boats that you name the boat. Now, this is my financial advisor. He goes, if you ever bought one of those boats, like a fancy boat, big one where you have to name it, he says, you know what you should name it? And I said, what? He says, you should name it 8 to 11. Now, think about that. My financial advisor thought of that completely alone. Now here, in order for him to think about that, then guess what? Number one, he probably knows my financial position. Number two, for him to think of 8 to 11, then that must be that I have created an identity within my world that Greg does nothing but generate from 8 to 11. So that means that that's my identity to people that are not even in the industry. Make it your identity, Jaya. I can tell you right now what will happen to you. More than you know.
I will.
Okay.
My goodness. I love it. Guys, Greg Harrelson, everybody, let's unmute our microphones.
Let's go.
And give Greg Harrelson a big thanks for jumping on here today.
Thank you very much.
Greg,
Thank you.
from the co-founders group, thank you so much for jumping on. Always direct, always more valuable than most people in the industry. Like, we really appreciate you jumping on here. And I hope all of us guys had a major impact today, right? Look ourselves in the mirror, make the changes required to get on that trajectory, which is up. You know what I mean? And Greg's created that example time after time after time after time. So if he's telling you to do something, you should probably be writing it down. You should be implementing that, not tomorrow, but today, and get after it. It's all out there, guys, for the people who are willing to put in the work. You just got to get to work. So thank you so much, Greg. Thanks, Michelle, for inviting Greg on. We love it. Michelle, anything else?
That's it.
Hey, Michelle, I really want to do Stump the Chump with Cooley.
So you know what we're gonna do?
Because Cooley, let me tell you what one of my motives are. Cooley, let's let your group, I hope they study trying to stump us, but the recording you and I will get, the recording you and I will have when it comes to all the variations of the objections will be priceless. And I want to get that recording because I can use that for my team also, right?
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
I really want to do that because if we preserve that recording, that'll change the world for a lot of agents. It really will.
I'll text you after this because either I was gonna say we do a special edition of the Breakfast Club. I know that falls under the 8 to 11 in your time zone though. So I think it might even be better that we do another Tuesday at this time. I think this falls in a window better.
Let's just ask the people if they want it. Do the people want that?
Yes.
Do the people want that?
Absolutely.
We need that. We need it.
Stop the chump.
We're gonna make that. We're gonna make that happen.
Yeah.
We're gonna make that happen.
It'd be
I
fun.
love it.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate you.
You're
Guys,
welcome.
this recording is gold.
Greg, if
so
you don't
can all
follow me
have
on Instagram, though, you're gonna continue to hurt my feelings. If
Oh,
I don't
God.
get a
Well, I
follow,
never
do it.
open up
Don't do
Instagram.
it.
I never open up
I'm
Instagram.
joking.
So I never
don't do
really
it.
post on it, but I'm
You're
gonna
gonna be
do it. I'm
peppered
gonna
with
do
Chad
it.
Cooley content. You're gonna be like, where's the mute button on this Instagram thing? Guys, thank you so much for popping on. Let's get to work. Let's get the job done. The market's on fire right now for agents who are operating like the market's on fire right now. Have a great day. Thank you for joining. Let's go.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Cooley. Thanks,
Bye.
Michelle.
Bye.
Bruh.
Michelle, is Greg Harrelson